Welcome back. We're discussing the use of drones in military operations and the future of this technology. Joining us now from the United Kingdom is Noel Sharkey. He's a professor of artificial intelligence and robotics at the University of Sheffield. Professor Sharkey, the U.S. government believes drone attacks are precise and effective way of rooting out terrorists. But you don't agree, sir, do you?
Well, it depends on how they're being used, really, with the current drones. Mainly, my biggest concern is really the use by the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, an intelligence force, who are using them in countries that the United States is not in conflict with officially. And so I'm very concerned with the legality of these, and there seems to be an awful lot of collateral damage. This is not being reported very well because they're not giving us a body count, although I believe they have that information, so we don't actually know the true extent of collateral damage. But in this circumstance, it's at best legally questionable.
You've called for a worldwide ban on the drones. You've called them killer robots. Why do you believe a ban is necessary?
Now the worldwide ban is on killer robots, and that is different from current drones. Current drones are operated from 7,000 miles away from the action, with someone sitting there, an operator and a laser operator, and they're looking through cameras at the targets. They're deciding on which targets to pull the trigger on. The killer robots ban is about drones that do not have an operator on board. It's about autonomous weapons systems like the X-47B, which the US is developing, that can fly on their own, select their own targets and kill them without any human involvement. That's what we're calling for a worldwide ban on.
And is that your biggest concern? I mean, what is the real danger here? Hurting civilians?
My biggest concern is the use of weapons that once launched can select their own targets and kill them without human involvement. And these are being designed by several countries throughout the world, including China, the US, Israel, Russia, and the UK, to name some of them.
But what is the best way, in your opinion, if not combat drones? What is the solution as far as getting rid of terrorists, so-called the bad guys, in places like Pakistan or Waziristan?
Well, I'm not a military strategist. I'm a humanitarian worker. And so it's not for me to say what the best strategy is. But what I can say is the current strategy seems to be leading to far more greater recruitment. People say it's the greatest recruitment tool ever for insurgency and terrorism, because striking in this way, it's much too easy, particularly signature strikes where they just go out on a fishing expedition, and if you notice people, they could be loading cattle, they could be loading guns into a truck, but it could be for whatever reason not to do with terrorist activity, and they can be fired upon. Targeted killings as well are killing a lot of innocent civilians. So perhaps this isn't the best way. Another way is to negotiate more, is to not antagonize people, is to find solutions within the Middle East that are peaceful. It's too easy to reach for weapons instead of negotiating.
Professor, tell us about the work you're doing with the International Commission for Robot Arms Control. What is the goal here? What are you trying to accomplish?
The International Committee for Robot Arms Control formed in 2009 with the express purpose of creating international discussion against autonomous weapons. As I say, they're different from normal drones. They will fly without a human being involved, and they will select their own targets and kill them. Now, we noticed that we were a group of academics who noticed that a number of countries were developing and designing these weapons without discussing them with each other. And so our concern was to get an international discussion going. And that has been very difficult, despite talking to militaries and policymakers for some years. It was not until this year that we managed to get the UN to look at this really properly, and they are looking at it now. It's with a committee called the CCW, and that's the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons. Now, that committee, its role is to ban weapons like cluster munitions, landmines, chemical weapons, biological weapons. They have 5 protocols, and it's 117 nation states, including China. And they met last November and formed a mandate for us to have expert discussions at the UN this May. And we've had those expert discussions, and we're now waiting for a new mandate in November. So our committee has succeeded in its first mission statement.
Professor Sharkey, one last question, if you could give me a quick answer on this one. You don't have a problem with unarmed drones monitoring the movement, perhaps, of refugees, because the UN says it can use those drones to get a view of potential trouble on the ground to protect civilians. Your problem is not with those types of drones, is it?
I have no problem with using drones for all types of surveillance. I have some concerns about how they've come back into the civil world and how they're attacking our privacy. But in terms of monitoring refugees, they're even being used to monitor endangered species and stop people killing them. So there's nothing wrong with drones per se.
All right. Thank you so much, Professor Noel Sharkey.